The freezing wind slammed against the creaky old windows of the trailer as a storm swept across the outskirts of Haven Ridge. Inside, dim yellow light flickered from a worn-out lamp, casting long shadows across the cramped kitchen where 33-year-old Caleb Whitmore stood, elbow-deep in dishwater, humming low to distract his 7-year-old son, Mason, from the rattling roof above them. "Is the roof gonna fly off again, Daddy?" Mason asked with those big, anxious eyes. Caleb forced a smile. "Nah, buddy. This old thing's tougher than it looks. Like your dad." Truth was, the place was falling apart. The insulation barely held, the heater wheezed more than it worked, and every storm threatened to peel the walls right off like a tin can. But Caleb never let Mason feel that. He kept the boy warm, fed, and laughing, even when his own bones ached with exhaustion. That night, the storm howled like a warning. And just as Caleb pulled a threadbare blanket tighter around Mason's shoulders, there was a knock at the door. A desperate, frantic knock. He froze. Nobody came out here. Not unless they were lost or running from something. Caleb cautiously approached, cracked the door open just a bit, and stopped breathing. There, drenched and trembling, stood a woman. Early 30s. Her lips were blue, her eyes wide with panic and pleading. She clutched a soaked backpack against her chest like it held her whole world. "I'm sorry," she whispered through chattering teeth. I didn't know where else to go. Please, just for a little while. Just somewhere warm." She looked half dead and terrified. Caleb hesitated for just a heartbeat. Then he stepped aside. "Get in. Now." She nearly collapsed onto the old couch, clutching the backpack tight, refusing to let it go even when Caleb offered a dry towel. She winced when he got too close, as if flinching from a ghost. "I'm not going to hurt you," Caleb said gently, kneeling near her. "You look like you've been through hell." She swallowed hard and nodded, but didn't say her name. She only muttered, "I'll be gone by morning. I swear." Mason peeked out from behind the hallway door, curious. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Caleb gave a faint smile. "Someone who needed help. And you know what we do when someone needs help, right? We help them," Mason replied without hesitation. The woman looked up at that. For the first time, her expression cracked. Not with fear, but with something else. Something that made her eyes glisten. Kindness. She hadn't seen it in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for this." "Don't thank me yet," Caleb said, trying to lighten the mood. "Wait till you taste the soup." The three of them sat in silence that night as the storm screamed outside. Caleb handed her a chipped mug of warm broth. She drank slowly, like she hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. She didn't say her name, and Caleb didn't ask. But that night, as Mason slept curled up with the woman's coat draped over him, Caleb noticed her watching the boy with an expression that flickered between grief, guilt, and something darker. Something haunted. He didn't push. He just left her another blanket. But as he turned to leave, she finally spoke. "My name's Lila," she said quietly. Then, after a long pause, almost too softly to hear, "And I didn't come here by accident." Caleb's blood ran cold. He turned slowly. Lila stared straight ahead, eyes fixed on the storm outside. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'll explain everything. Just, please don't let him find me." Caleb didn't sleep that night. Even after the storm died down and the world outside fell into frozen silence, his mind kept replaying Lila's words. "I didn't come here by accident." The weight of those 7 syllables pressed on his chest like cinder blocks. What did she mean? At sunrise, the sound of the old coffee maker percolating broke the silence. Caleb stood by the tiny kitchen counter, still shirtless, steam rising from his mug. His gaze drifted to the couch. She was gone. Heart spiking, he spun, only to find her in the corner of the room, kneeling in front of Mason, tucking the blanket tighter around the boy with trembling hands. "You're up early," Caleb said quietly. Lila flinched, then stood slowly. "I didn't mean to scare you." "I wasn't scared," he lied. "But you said something last night, about not being here by accident." Her face hardened. "I know how that sounds. But I swear, I didn't mean it to be creepy. Her voice cracked. "I recognized you." He stared at her, stunned. "From where?" She looked down at the floor, and when she spoke again, it was barely a whisper. "The food bank. You and your son. Last December. I was there too. In the back by the fence. You handed me your coat and told me, 'It'll get better.' I never forgot that." Caleb blinked. I. He barely remembered it. He gave away a lot of things during the worst months. He just never thought they'd matter. But that's not all, she added, her voice suddenly shaky, like something bigger sat just behind her lips. I didn't come back here just because you were kind to me. She slowly unzipped the soaked backpack and pulled out a stack of papers, wrapped in plastic. She handed them to Caleb. He unwrapped them carefully and felt the color drain from his face. Core documents, police reports, photographs of her, with bruises, of a man, and on the top page, temporary restraining order denied. I ran, she said, with nothing but what I could carry. I changed buses 3 times, walked 6 miles through the cold, all to get to the one place I remembered feeling safe. Your words that day saved me, Caleb. You didn't know it, but they did. Caleb's jaw tightened. Is he looking for you? Lila nodded, swallowing hard. He's got money, influence, connections. I've been sleeping in alleys, laundromats, anywhere I could stay invisible. But I couldn't anymore. Not with what I'm carrying. She looked down at her stomach. That's when Caleb saw it. The subtle curve, barely noticeable under her oversized sweater the night before. She was pregnant, and it wasn't just bruises she was running from. It was something evil. Jesus, Caleb muttered. Why didn't the courts help? Her laugh was bitter and sharp. Because his uncle's a judge, and his cousin's a cop. You think they cared about some ex-waitress who used to sing at dive bars? Caleb's fists clenched. Memories of his own past surfaced. The years of watching his ex spiral. The night she left him in Mason, taking everything except her son. He knew what helplessness felt like. He knew the taste of fear. But this was something darker. Something unforgivable. You're staying, Caleb said firmly. Both of you. Lila's eyes filled. You don't even know me. I know you didn't hurt that child. I know you didn't lie last night. And I know fear when I see it. She looked away, biting her trembling lip. He'll come looking. You don't have to get involved. I am involved, Caleb said. You showed up at my door for a reason. You think I'm going to let some rich psycho come hurt you? Not a damn chance. There was a silence between them, heavy, fragile, and raw. And in that moment, the air between them shifted. Not romantic. Not yet. But something else. Human connection in its purest form. Later that day, Caleb made a few calls. Quiet ones. Careful ones. And by nightfall, he'd hidden her car deeper in the woods behind the trailer, gave Mason the story that Miss Lila's visiting for a while, and barricaded every door and window like a man preparing for war. Because something in his gut said this wasn't just going to blow over. And deep inside, he could feel it. This was only the calm before a storm far worse than last night's. 3 days passed. Lila stayed mostly quiet, cautious, always keeping her ears tuned to the sounds outside the trailer. But Mason? He took to her like a sunflower turns toward light. She made him laugh, told silly stories, fixed his broken shoelace with thread from her own coat. And when he coughed one night, she sat beside him and rubbed his back until he fell asleep. Caleb noticed it all. He saw how Lila never relaxed, how her hands trembled when tires crunched on gravel, how she'd flinch when someone raised their voice, even on the TV, how she stood a little too long at the kitchen window after dark. That morning, while Mason was at school, Caleb found her outside, arms crossed, staring at the woods. You okay? He asked. I don't know, she murmured. Part of me wants to believe I'm finally safe. The other part knows better. He stepped beside her, silent. Then, she added, do you ever get tired of pretending everything's fine for your kid? That hit him harder than it should have. Every night, Caleb pulled 10-hour shifts at the auto yard, came home half dead, helped Mason with homework, then stayed up worrying how he'd afford groceries next week. But he never let Mason see that, never let the fear crack through. All the time, he said honestly. Lila looked at him with something fragile in her eyes. You're a good dad, Caleb. He gave her a sad smile. You're a good person. I can tell. She didn't believe it. He could see that in her eyes. She didn't think she deserved to be seen that way. Later that day, Mason came running in with a crumpled piece of paper, all excitement. Look, I drew Miss Lila. The picture was childlike, sweet. 3 stick figures holding hands in front of the trailer. One was labeled me. One was Dad. And the third? Angel. Lila had to turn away. Her shoulders shook. She didn't tell them the truth that night about what happened the last time someone called her that. But it didn't matter. Because while they laughed and played cards by the heater, someone else was watching the trailer. From the tree line, a black SUV, engine off, windows tinted, parked half a mile down the road, just far enough not to be seen, but close enough to watch. Inside sat a man in a tailored coat, gold cufflinks, immaculate hands, and eyes that didn't blink as he stared through binoculars at the dim yellow light shining from Caleb's living room. His phone buzzed. "Yeah," he said. "She's here." A pause. No cops. I want her back quietly. You understand me." He tapped the photo on the dash, an old one. Lila, smiling, sitting on a piano bench, younger, before the bruises, before the terror. He looked at it like she was property. Then he tucked it away and leaned back, smirking. "Game on, sweetheart." The next morning, Lila found the dead bird, right by the steps. Neck snapped. Placed perfectly. Caleb walked out, just in time to see her pale. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer. She just pointed. Caleb bent down, looked at the bird, and instantly understood. This wasn't nature. This was a message. Her ex had found them. That night, Caleb loaded his shotgun. Lila sat at the table, silent, fingers running along the handle of her coffee mug like it could ground her. "You're not going anywhere," Caleb said. "Caleb." "No. He wants you scared. Wants you to run. We're not giving him what he wants." She looked up. "And what if you get hurt?" He held her gaze. "If protecting you means I get hurt, I'll take that trade every damn time." Lila stood suddenly, voice shaking. "You don't even know what he's capable of. He once poured boiling water on his last girlfriend's dog just to prove a point." Silence. Then Caleb said something that made her chest twist. "Well, I've had about enough of men like him walking around like gods." The next 24 hours were war prep. Caleb contacted an old friend from his brief time in the military reserves, a buddy who owed him a favor. Cameras were installed around the trailer. New locks on the doors. Burner phones bought and hidden. And Lila, she finally told him everything. Her real name. Her dreams before it all. The night she tried to leave and ended up in the hospital with 2 broken ribs. He listened to every word. And when she cried, he held her, not like a lover, not yet, but like someone promising silently, never again. But still, nothing could have prepared them for what happened next. Because just before dawn, while Mason slept, a rock shattered their front window. Attached to it, a note, scrawled in red ink. "I want what's mine, or you all burn." The note sat on the kitchen table like a ticking bomb. Caleb stared at it, fists clenched, jaw grinding. Lila hadn't said a word in 10 minutes. She stood across the room, arms crossed tight, as if holding herself together by sheer force. The way her eyes locked onto that paper, it wasn't fear anymore. It was fury. Controlled. Focused. Quiet. "I'm calling the cops," Caleb said at last. "No," she snapped. "He owns half the damn town. His cousin's a sheriff deputy. His uncle signs warrants. If we call them, he'll find a way to twist this. He always does." "So what then?" Caleb shot back, his voice barely under control. "Just wait till he kicks the door in." "No," she said. Then she stepped closer, eyes dark, almost unrecognizable from the woman who had stood shivering at his door days ago. "We fight smart." Caleb stared at her. "You've done this before. I've survived this before." They didn't sleep that night. Mason never stirred. He was used to storms, and in his innocence, he didn't know another one was brewing inside their walls. By dawn, Caleb's friend Marcus arrived. A big man with thick hands and a quiet demeanor. Marcus didn't ask questions. He took one look at Lila, nodded respectfully, and started setting up a camera feed linked to Caleb's phone. "Motion sensors, too," Marcus explained. "And I set an alert if anything heavier than a rabbit crosses the south tree line." That night, Lila finally opened the old piano in Caleb's trailer. The keys were dusty, out of tune, but her fingers found something ancient in them. Music. Soft. Raw. Almost sacred. Caleb stood in the kitchen, watching her. The melody crept under his skin, deeper than he expected. Not because it was beautiful, but because it ached. She played like someone who had cried through those keys once. When the last note faded, Lila looked up. "Before all this, I was going to audition for a touring group. Jazz, classical, soul, you name it." He saw my audition tape. 2 weeks later, I was pregnant and had nothing. Caleb came to sit beside her, quiet. "You think it's too late?" Lila looked at him, and for the first time since they met, she smiled. It wasn't big. It wasn't hopeful, but it was real. I don't know, but I'm tired of running. A pause. Then, I want to live again, Caleb. He didn't say anything. He just reached over and squeezed her hand, not as a man claiming her, but as someone believing in her. For the first time in years, she didn't flinch from touch. They barely had 2 hours apiece. Just after midnight, the back sensor went off. Caleb grabbed the shotgun and slid toward the back door, motioning for Lila to stay low. Through the window, he saw a shadow. Not moving. Waiting. He unlocked the door slowly, barrel first. Show yourself, he barked into the darkness. Silence. Then, long time, soldier boy, a voice slithered out. A man stepped forward, neatly dressed, impossibly calm. Slick hair, cold smile, eyes empty. Lila's ex. Brent. Caleb didn't lower the shotgun. You've got 10 seconds to leave. Brent chuckled. And you've got 1 second to realize who you're talking to. Do you even know who she really is? HM. You think she's some damsel? She's a thief. A liar. She stole my child. She ran from you. Caleb said, voice like gravel. And if I ever find out what you did to her, I'll bury you. Brent's smile sharpened. You really think you're the first hero to try? Then he tossed something at Caleb's feet. A USB drive. I'll give you 24 hours, Brent said, already turning away. After that, this place won't exist on a map anymore. He disappeared into the trees. Car engine roaring moments later. Lila ran out just after, breathing hard. Is he gone? He left us this. Caleb held up the USB. Inside, it held photos. Dozens. Surveillance shots. Of her. Caleb. Mason. Grocery store receipts. School pickup. They'd been watched for weeks. But at the bottom of the drive was a folder labeled Confession. They opened it. Audio recordings. Brent. Yelling. Slurring. Admitting things. The beatings. The bribes. Even one chilling whisper. If she ever talks, I'll make sure no one ever find her body. Lila covered her mouth. Caleb looked over at her. This is enough to bury him. Not without someone brave enough to use it, she whispered. I'm brave enough. No, Caleb, she said. We are. They didn't sleep. By morning, Lila had made a decision. We're not hiding anymore, she told Caleb. We're going to end this. He stared at her, tired, tense, but proud. Then let's do it smart. They went to a reporter, one Caleb trusted from high school. Quiet, honest, and desperate for something real. They handed her the USB. An hour later, the story hit the local site. By noon, it was on the state news. Prominent businessman implicated in domestic abuse cover-up. Within hours, Brent's world started crumbling. But he didn't go quietly. He showed up at the trailer that night, full of rage, pushing through the woods with a small gun and chaos in his eyes. Caleb was ready. He met Brent halfway down the path, stood firm with his shotgun aimed low. One more step, and it's over. Brent smiled bitter. You ruined me. No, Caleb growled. You did that to yourself. Then Lila stepped out behind Caleb, calm, brave, and holding her phone. Smile, Brent. You're live. Brent froze. 1 million people watching. His threats, his rage, all broadcast in real time. He turned to run. Cops were already pulling up. 2 months later, Caleb sat outside the courthouse. Lila came out, holding Mason's hand. Full custody granted, she whispered. Brent was sentenced. His empire shattered. Lila turned to Caleb, eyes soft. You saved my life. He smiled. No, you saved your own. I just gave you a warm place to rest. They stood there, wind brushing softly past. Then Mason tugged on both their hands. Can we go home now? Lila nodded. This time, she didn't look over her shoulder. She didn't have to.